Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Tom Danvers from Waygate Technologies. Very pleased to say for this webinar, I'm joined with my colleague, Mark Marash. Introduce yourself, Mark.
Sure, yeah. I'm with Rhinestahl CTS. I'm the engineering manager for electronic products here.
So for this session, we'll be specifically taking you through the new feature that we've introduced on the MViQ Plus, Turning Tool 2.0. This session is specifically associated with the new feature that we've introduced on the MViQ Plus. We'll be taking you through exactly what that is, let you understand what has changed, whilst also Mark will provide a recap on what essentially is the Rhinestahl Future Drive NG Plus system. And if you've joined my webinars before, there's always a good mixture, or hopefully a good mixture of presentation slides, but also practical demonstrations. So I will be taking you through a practical demonstration of this feature before then sort of really telling you which models of the BORESCOPE that this feature is associated with, before summarizing. And hopefully, if you've got any questions, please do think of any questions as we go through the session, and we'll put some time towards the end to answer any that you have. So let's begin. So starting straight off with an overview of Turning Tool 2.0. On the outgoing MViQ model, we had TT 1.0. Turning Tool 2.0 is something that we've launched on the MViQ Plus handset, the new BORESCOPE that was released about a month ago by Waygate Technologies. TT 2.0 allows you to control the rotation of the engine by interacting and controlling the turning tool connected to it. So we have a new on-screen user interface to enable you to perform basic functions such as start, pause, and stop. Did I say stop? I meant start, pause, and stop. And should you choose to do so, there is also a toggle switch to enable you to, as you're going through and performing your inspection, to either save the image or not save the image as the tool rotates and presents the blades to the BORESCOPE. If the toggle switch is switched to on, and I'll be taking you through in much more detail, this is just a brief overview. If the switch is switched over to one or to on to capture, then you have the option to capture normal JPEG images, high dynamic range images, but also a range of stereo measurement images, such as stereo and 3D face measurement images. So as the BORESCOPE is presented with a new blade by the turning tool, it receives a signal from the turning tool that a new blade has appeared. And if the switch is activated to the on position, then however long it takes for that image to be acquired and saved by the BORESCOPE, whichever of those types of images it is, that takes place before the turning tool sends a signal back to the turning tool to allow the next blade to be presented, and so on and so forth. All of that is all hands-free. Also, during the presentation of blades, there is an option on the BORESCOPE to have a time delay of either 0, 3, or 10 seconds. So whether, again, if the capture toggle is switched to off or on, it doesn't really matter. But during this image save process, for instance, there will first be a period of time set by a notification on the BORESCOPE to say it's counting down from, say, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. And then either an image will be saved or the next blade will be rotated and presented to the BORESCOPE. So there are these time delay options as well. Data management. So yeah, as you're similar to menu directed inspection, if you're not using menu directed inspection, then there is a really neat feature such that when every image is saved by the BORESCOPE, there is a very clear file name produced that delineates what the blade number and what the revolution number is on the screen, on the file name. So lots of data can be saved, you might appreciate, if you choose to capture every single image. There could be hundreds and hundreds of images per stage, depending on the number of blades and the number of views required to capture those blades. So file naming and data management is a very useful feature. And I'll show you an example on the BORESCOPE when we get to that point. And I skipped through one of the bullet points. I'll just quickly come back to that point where it says automated rotation, and there's two modes. So our setting on the BORESCOPE is set to either indefinite or revolution. So indefinite basically suggests that as the turning tool rotates and presents blades to the BORESCOPE, it will just continue and continue and continue indefinitely until a pause or a stop is commanded by the user. If, however, the setting is set to revolution, then there's a facility that then appears in the settings screen to enter the number of revolutions required to capture that stage. Some blades are very small and might only require one capture, in which case it's just one revolution required to capture that blade. But others, for instance, in the LP turbine or in the booster, where you've got very tall blades, you might need 5 or 6 or so number of revolutions to incrementally capture each view if you choose to capture your blades in a static position. So you type in the number of views that are required to capture that blade, such that at the end of each revolution, the turning tool stops and provides you with a notification to move your BORESCOPE to the next view, and you press the button to resume capture and rotation, and the next revolution continues, and so forth, so on and so forth, until you get to the end of however many revolutions you set to in the screen, in the settings screen. So all of those revolutions, all of those images with blade number and revolution number are all captured within the file name of each file saved. And last but no least, there's basically a safety feature that we've incorporated into this function, such that if the user chooses to move away from the live screen, for instance, going into the settings screen, or taps the screen and goes into freeze frame and measurement and all the rest of it, the turning tool is commanded to pause immediately once you move away from the live state. The thinking being that it's necessary for you to be aware of the position of the probe at all times during blade rotation. And so if you move away from the live state in any of those things that you just heard me mention, then a command is sent to the turning tool for it to pause. Alternatively, you have the handset. This is the turning tool handset you can see in my hand. You can press a button, any of the buttons on the turning tool handset, and that will also command a pause. As you can see on the screenshot here, whilst turning tool 2.0 is in control, all of the normal functions, the turning tool sort of normal functions on the future drive hand control system are removed, because all control is taken by the BORESCOPE, and hence the screen says press any key to stop, for instance. So all of the normal user interface is deactivated during that process. So that's a quick overview of turning tool 2.0. We'll go into much more detail shortly, but I'll hand over to Mark now, and he'll take you through what essentially is the Rhinestahl Future Drive NG Plus system.
All right, so I'll give a short overview of the Future Drive system and setup. We have adapters for 70+ applications. They range from very simple ones to more complex ones with gear trains and slip clutches. We also have offset adapters like you see on the far right that allow you to clear engine accessories, wires, and plumbing. This is the motor, Future Drive motor. It's used with all of the different adapters and rotates everything with the 1/2-inch drive there. It's a Future Drive power unit. It's got the power supply, motor controller, and some of the system logic inside of it. The handset is the main interface users use when operating the Future Drive. They plug, we have auxiliary foot and hand switches that plug in here. They're not strictly needed for operations, but they are a convenient tool to use. So to set up, we first press engine. and use the arrow keys, select the profile of the engine and interface we're using. For an engine that can be turned in both directions, we select backlash. Then we select speed and slow the system down because it works better if you do this slowly. So we'll select the speed, turn it down, and we go back to backlash. We rotate the system in one direction until we see blade movement. And we've taken up the slack. Then we move in the opposite direction. And as soon as we see blade movement, we release the key again. After that, we press the circular button and we basically recorded the backlash we've just taken. It takes us automatically a stage selection menu, but we can also select that manually. The arrow keys are used to pick the stage we're currently inspecting. Next, we use the move button to select jog. And actually, this is a good time to decrease or increase speed of movement and then return to jog again. Now we can we're going to jog the engine around until we've placed the first blade 1, into the desired position. Anytime we reverse directions, you'll see the backlash screen pop up. And once you've set it, you hit the set view position button and it records that position. And you can either hit the button a second time or you can move into any of the move menu items and it will reset the screen and show you that you're now on blade 1. Now we're ready to go, and you can use blade mode normally to move from blade to blade. However, in this case, what we would do is plug into the MViQ Plus using the serial port, which is right here on the unit. And now it can command blade to blade movements, much like we would under blade mode. With that, we can go back to the slides. Here you can see the different parts of the feature drive system, the adapter, the motor, either wired or wireless, hand controls as ordered by the customer, and the optional auxiliary switches are also shown here, plus a power unit. Now, historically, the integration between the BORESCOPE and the future drive was done by the human being standing between them and operating both. But now, of course, by connecting, the integration is obviously a lot better. And any future drive NG Plus unit, and you can tell that it's an NG Plus very quickly and easily. Just look for the blue labels like what we're showing here. And if you have an MViQ Plus, chances are very strong that you do not have this installed yet because this is a recently released software upgrade. So contact us and we can get you an upgrade in order to get future this TT 2.0 functionality available to you. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Mark. So the workflow. So Mark took you through the basic functions very briefly, I understand, of setting up and operating the turning tool in isolation, so without connecting to the MViQ Plus. Here we're taking you through the workflow associated with connecting to the MViQ Plus. So the workflow associated with exploiting the features that we have in TT 2.0. So to briefly recap some of what you've just heard Mark just take you through. With the Future Drive NG Plus handset, this thing here that you see in my hand, you do select these, you do carry out these activities currently that you see on the screen. So it is necessary for you to select the engine type, assign the backlash, select the stage, position the blade to your desired position, rotate the blade to the desired position. And the last thing you would do is once you're in the jog mode on the handset, you're able to see the button illuminate for set view position. And that basically zeroes the clock down to the clock being the blade count. So blade count 1. So as you're jogging and moving the blades around, having not yet started your full inspection process, it's necessary to sort of zero that clock. And so that when you start with that first blade in position, in the correct position that you want all the subsequent other blades to be in, you press the set view position. And then at this point, you then switch over to the MViQ Plus. So you see here, there is a USB cable, as you saw on the chart on the previous slide. It runs from the power unit on the on the turning tool system through to the USB port on the MViQ Plus on the side. There are 2 ports, so you can still have 1 port for your USB thumb drive if you need to. Or it could be connected to your iPhone, for instance, and someone else could be viewing the image from their screen or Android's device. So there are 2 USB ports. So one of them is consumed by connecting to the Future Drive system. And then once that's assigned or connected, sorry, a keyboard illuminates or appears on your screen, and you're invited to enter your engine serial number or asset serial number. So you type that onto the screen, and I'll demonstrate all of this with the live demonstration. But here's the point where you really want to check the number of views that are required to inspect that stage. You heard me say that, you know, it could be 1, it could be 2, 3, 4, 5, for instance, number of views. So just check the settings are set to the appropriate settings, specifically the number of revolutions. And then you press the new little icon that you see on the left-hand side of this screenshot here. And once you press that button, I shall just play the video that's on here. You see a disclaimer. Let me just pause it if I can. There's a little disclaimer that just basically says that you need to be aware of the fact that you have a turning tool attached and there will be a rotation commanded by the BORESCOPE. So just be careful and be aware that as you're maneuvering, if you choose to maneuver your BORESCOPE, it could get trapped by the rotating blades. So there's a little disclaimer there. If you choose to not accept that disclaimer, it just goes back to the previous screen and you can't continue. So if you click yes to that, you're then in a rotation mode. And as you can see, the toggle switch for capture is set to on. So every time a blade is presented to the BORESCOPE, a signal is received by the BORESCOPE. And in this case, it will capture a simple JPEG image. So this is kind of, it's not live, it's obviously a recorded video. But the time taken for it to rotate to the blade, save an image, and then send a signal back to the turning tool for the next blade is very, very quick. So it's a very time efficient process. And all of that is done hands-free. Now, I've got another short video to show you. So this is a video taken actually whilst I was capturing blades on my desk. So I'm simulating being in an engine environment. In this case, I'm on the HP turbine stage 1 for Gen X2B, and there are 62 HP turbine blades. So as I reach the end of blade 62 and the turning tool presents back to blade number 1, you will see this notification appear on the screen that the BORESCOPE no longer controls the turning tool. And you see this prompt to basically say you've reached the end of your revolution. In this case, it's revolution number 3. And move the probe. So you've seen me move the probe, and then I press the resume button. And as you can see on the status bar on the top of the screen, it's now started revolution number 4 in this case. And so the process begins again. There's going to be another 62 blades presented to the BORESCOPE. And in this case, it will capture 62 images. At any time, I can pause and capture more images. So if you do find defects or features that you're interested in looking at and interrogating, you can pause, do whatever it is you need to do and capture more images. As you can see on the file name here, on the string at the top of the screen, it says HP Turbine 1, blade number 2. So it's captured blade number 2 in revolution number 4, and then it's the first image. So if I chose to pause at this point and capture more images, it will have the same file name, but rather than 001 at the end, it will say 002, 003, 004 if you're capturing more, let's say, measurement images. Of a defect that might appear on this blade number, for instance. So all of that smart file naming is managed by the device. So Turning Tool 2.0, it's a great feature in isolation, but if you were to use it in conjunction with other features that we already have on the Borescope, it becomes even more powerful. So here's, and again, I'll be demonstrating this live shortly. So here's a slide associated with, for example, using Turning Tool 2.0 in conjunction with menu directed inspection. And this is a sneaky peek of what MDI looks like in the very near future. So you see the text box on the top left-hand side that shows I'm in IP compressor stage 2. It's a rotor blade trailing edge, as opposed to a stator vane or something. So it's IPC2 trailing edge, my engine serial number, and I've got other information that stays on the screen through my MDI. You can also see that I've got blade counter 2.0 activated. If you connected with one of my earlier webinars a month or so ago, it was towards the end of February, there's a webinar I just did on blade counter 2.0. So if you've got blade counter attached or operating and MDI operating, I've deactivated the overlay text from the turning tool, and you can see everything that you see here on the screen. And you can also see I've got the defect detector gas power assist activated as well. So with Turning Tool 2.0, it runs with all of these other features. And with this being an upgraded computer and processor, it's a very powerful processor that we have in the MViQ Plus. All of these things can happen and operate at the same time, as well as obviously recording and doing 3D phase measurement, saving audio voiceover messages, for instance, over your videos, whilst also having voice control, so you can command your simple commands using voice control. So all of those things are happening at the same time with the Borescope. Quick reminder: if there are any more questions, or if there are any questions, please put them in the chat or think of them when we get to the point where we go through. So this is the point where I'll hand over and to my Borescope and show you the live demonstration. So just bear with me. I'm going to press a few buttons and switch windows. It's this one here. Okay. So here, I'll just wiggle it around. So that's my Borescope that you see next to me, pointing to a blade. And I haven't yet connected. So in my hand is a USB connected, USB cable that is connected to the FutureVive system. I'm just going to plug it into the side of the handset. Let's see where it is. So within a second or so, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Here we go. So it's just showing you the previous engine serial number that I had in. So that would normally be empty screen. But you can see the notification at the top of the screen that says turning tool connected, and enter the serial number of the asset under the inspection. So for argument's sake, let's just call this test 1. Press done. And you can see the overlay text that not only the serial number that I've just typed in, but the text that it's lifted from the turning tool. So on my turning tool, I have GenX2B attached, but if I choose to change it, let's change to a different type, PW1100. Go to my stage. I'm not in HB1. Let's say I'm in HB2. And on my handset, I see HB2 and 38 blades, as an example. So I still haven't activated Turning Tool 2.0. So I still have control of the Borescope using the Rhinestahl Turning Tool handset because I haven't yet started, because I haven't yet pressed that icon that you see on the bottom left-hand side. So I've set all of those things that you heard Mark and me talk about earlier in terms of making sure the engine type is set, the backlash is set, the stage is set, and I've jogged it to the correct blade position, and then I press that set view position number. So let's just jog it and I'll just show you. let's move. So I'm jogging the motor now, and it will go to blade 2 shortly. So you can see it's gone to blade 2. Let's say for demonstration purposes, this is where I want it to be. So I'll press my set view position, and you can see the count return to 1. And effectively, that's truly 1.00, in as much that that is your datum position that you want to start your inspection on. So once you've done all of those things, you're ready to press the button. Actually, what I didn't show you was going into settings. So I've just quickly gone into settings, and you heard me earlier talk about the turning tool control mode. We have indefinite, where it will just continue spinning on and on and on for the rest of the day, unless you command a pause or a stop, or you set it to revolution. And with revolution, you can see the new line appear that says number of revolutions, what number do you require? So this is where it's necessary for you to input that information into the turning tool, such that when it begins the rotation, it knows how many revolutions are required to capture that stage. So that's a requirement that you, the user, needs to input into the settings. And as you can see, I've changed it from 5 to 2. So on the top, on the status bar, you can see it says turning tool revolution 1 of 2. So everything's set. Press the start button, accept the disclaimer, and now on my turning tool handset, if I show you on there, you might be able to pick out, it says press any key to stop. So all of the usual buttons and options that were on the turning tool handset have disappeared, because full control is now taken over by the BORESCOPE. So it's now in the process of collecting all of those blades for that stage. And you heard me say I could press pause or stop earlier, but for argument's sake, let me just go into the global menu or drop into the settings or do something else that has taken me out of the live state. Press the back button. I'm back in the live state, but you can see the icon that was suggesting that, or basically indicating that there was rotation. It's now in the pause state. So you have to take it back and it will resume where it left off. So it had previously captured the previous image, and it will take you back to the next blade and continue the capture. In this case, it's captured because I have the toggle switch activated. If I choose to turn off capture, whilst it's rotating, it'll carry on capturing, carry on rotating without capturing. So let me just go back into settings and show you the number of seconds. Oh, here we go. Delay before blade rotation. So I'm going to just change it from 0 to 3 seconds and resume rotation. So here it's at a blade, and it's going to pause for 3 seconds and then tell the signal back to the turning tool, right, take me to the next blade. Turning tool is going to the next blade. It stops. And it's going to pause that blade for 3 seconds. It could have been 0, or it could have been 10 seconds as well. You've seen it in the settings screen. So it gives you time to just look at the scene, look at the blade, make sure you're happy with it. If you're not happy with it and you need to move your BORESCOPE and interrogate whatever it is that you're looking at, that's perfectly fine. You just press the pause button. As you can see here, the BORESCOPE no longer is controlling the turning tool. You can move your probe or do some measurement functions, just like you would do normally. Capture those images and then resume rotation. So that is turning tool 2.0 in its basic form. What I did just an hour or two before this webinar started, just to show you the extent of all the data. So if I go to, I think it's test 2. Oh, here we go. Test 1. So an hour or two before the webinar started, I set it to inspect 5 revolutions of a HB turbine blade. Again, on my desk, I'm not in an engine, so these are example images. So you can see on the screen I've got, it's quite easily sort of pick out on the file name. This is HB turbine blade, blade number 1, revolution number 2, 3, 4, 5. So there were 5 revolutions, you'll understand that I set. So, and then there's blade number 2, revolution 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of this data, I'm just going to scroll down some of it. All of that has been captured and smartly saved in terms of the file name and even the folder. There's a folder created under the serial number that you create. So all of that is managed by the device. So a lot of data. You might recognize that the MViQ Plus comes with much more significant onboard memory. So the top end model, the Pro model, has the capacity of 160 gigabytes. So more than enough data to not just contain normal JPEG images that are like half a megabyte. If you choose to set to capture for, I'll just show you on the settings. If you chose to capture 3D phase measurement, I'll just show you on the joystick and highlight it. If that was selected to 3D phase measurement, each of those images could be up to sort of 4 megabytes. So you could have hundreds and hundreds of images with each image being 4 megabytes. So you quickly consume a lot more memory. And so that is easily accommodated by the onboard memory that we have on our MViQ Plus platform. Right, so other demonstration I wanted to show you was if I disconnect that USB probe, you see it's the message saying it's disconnected. I'm going to just load up these other functions that you heard me briefly talk about. So if I press MDI, and again, just for speed and convenience, I'm going to resume an MDI, which I had loaded up earlier. I'm just going to find it here. So I'm going to load up an MDI that I actually started before this webinar started, and I entered this information into it. So I'm just going to resume that menu-directed inspection. So this is my sort of title chart or inspection details page, as you can see here. You can see that. Here we go. So that's already populated because I've resumed it. I'm going to press done. And this happens to be a Trent 700 menu direction inspection template. So if I'm resuming the inspection, let's say I'm dropping back into stage 3 rotor blade leading edge. All of that information is captured on the screen that you can see on the top left-hand side. So this will be new to a lot of you because this is a new upgraded version of MDI that I'll take you through in the next webinar in a couple of weeks' time. So what I'm demonstrating here is loading up an MDI. And then when I connect my turning tool, because I disconnected it earlier, the keyboard appears. I'm just going to press done to that test 1 asset serial number. You can see there's basically now a conflict. The text that's overlaid from the turning tool is clashing with the text from the MDI. So you go into the turning tool, turn off automatic annotation, and you can see that text disappear from the Rhinestahl Future Drive turning tool system. And let's say I now want to go into analytics and turn on blade counter and gas power assist. Enter my total blade count, all of those things that you're perhaps used to now because of what you perhaps saw me show a couple of weeks ago. So I now have a blade in front of me, and you can see that I've turned on the defect detector, so it's picking out defects. It's also picking out the aerofoil as I move it. And what I can show is, if this was obviously in a real engine environment, these blades would then be rotating, and you would be counting the blades using blade counter 2.0. You would be live defect detector, and as you're saving those images within MDI, it also contains contextual information associated with this serial number, with all the information that you see on the top left-hand side. I've even put my name in as the inspector, for instance, and all all of that information is contained within the data that you subsequently capture, whilst also being controlled by the turning tool. I've said it before, but I could also pause by pressing one of the buttons on the turning tool handset. So I've just done that, and yeah, it stopped. And then to resume it, you go back in and continue your inspection by resuming there. So that, I think, let me just go back into the settings, see if there's anything that I haven't really mentioned. So you can change your serial number, you can change your image type, change all of your revolution types if you want to go back to indefinite, for instance. All of these things can happen whilst you're connected to the turning tool. If you so choose to change it during that, then that's perfectly fine. Ideally, you would set this up before you start the capture and the inspection process, but it can be changed on the fly. Okay, that's my demonstration. Let me just press a few buttons and we'll resume the PowerPoint. Share screen. So, which models does Turning Tool 2.0 apply to? For the MViQ Plus, you see here the three models that we have. There's the Start model, the Enhance, and the Pro model. TT 2.0 is included on Enhance and Pro. It can be purchased as an extra for the Start model. And as you'll be familiar, the outgoing MViQ model, there is the Inspect, Touch, and Analyze, these three models. So the Turning Tool 2.0 is available on the MViQ on the next update that's coming out in 1 or 2 weeks' time. That's called version 3.75. So when that model, when the MViQ Flame model is upgraded to version 3.75, if you have the Analyze model, the one on the right-hand side you see, you will, as part of that software upgrade, you will become exposed to this very same feature, Turning Tool 2.0. If you have, however, an Inspect or a Touch model, it is available as a trial. If you've used that trial previously on 3.72, for instance, then it can be reactivated, but it's only available as a trial. So they can be reactivated. We can, when we're happy to do that, if you want more time to do those trials and experience the feature, but it will expire after that period of time. And they are available as a purchase upgrade for those two models. So really kind of moving into the summary section now, you've heard me basically walk you through Turning Tool 2.0. It's unlike Turning Tool 1.0, it is a true two-way communication between the Turning Tool, the Rhinestahl RC3000NG Plus, and also the MViQ Plus BORESCOPE system. There is a new user interface that allows you to control all of that on the BORESCOPE. So you'll be able to rotate, inspect, and capture, and automatically capture the file names automatically on the device. There's that really neat function where we recognize it's very necessary if you're not on a live state that, in other words, if you choose to move your BORESCOPE for whatever reason, if you're not in the live state, you could be technically moving it into the path of rotating blades. So we've got this command that basically prevents that from happening, such that there is a pause that must take place if you were to freeze frame or go into settings, for instance. So that's accommodated for by doing that. If you choose, for whatever reason, to want to press stop by using the Turning Tool handset, then you can do so by pressing any button on there as well. And importantly, unlike the previous Turning Tool 1.0 feature, multiple fields of view are now accommodated for in this feature. So it's quite common for you to be able to move the probe to another position, and continue the rotation Whether you choose to capture each blade or not is entirely obviously at your discretion. But if you choose to do that, then these smart file names are accommodating for every different revolution, then a different file names are accommodating for. And as you've just seen me demonstrate, using Turning Tool 2.0 in conjunction with menu directed inspection, in conjunction with assisted defect recognition and blade counter, you can really start to appreciate the true value of having all of these features on the one device, such that you can really start to focus on the task at hand without having to do things as you would done previously with regards to rotating either manually or electronically, but you're focusing on two different devices while you're doing that. This is all managed by the one device. So as you can see, there's a couple of lines down there just to make sure that you check. This feature is not available on every single borescope type, and you've heard Mark say it's not available yet on the NG Plus until you reach out to him and the Rhinestahl business. There is an application note that we've created, so there's more information on our website. If you go into waygatetech.com, you will see, if you drop down to the bottom of the web page, there's various resources that we have available. If you press the case study field, you will be sort of filtered out to these application notes, and we have a new application note for Turning Tool 2.0. So for more information there, I'll probably drop it into the comments on the LinkedIn page so you can download it and view it on your phone after this session. Yes, and just to sort of close, we have a number of more webinars coming. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be talking more about menu-directed inspection. You've just seen a brief, well, not an overview of it, but you've just seen it briefly on my demonstration where we have updated menu-directed inspection. So there's some really useful extra features that we have now on MDI. And then later in April, we talk about Inspection Works, our cloud-based system. So lots more to talk through. Please do join those sessions. Thank you for attending. Now's a moment to pause and take any questions that you might have. Thank you. Question to Mark. Am I going to be able to sell this?
Yeah, I'm not sure who we are right there, but does anybody have information on? Unfortunately, I'm not logged into LinkedIn, so I don't see.
It's on the screen, Mark.
Yeah, I see the question. He says, question mark, are we going to be able to sell their systems again? And I assume you mean Future Drive. And is he a Waygate employee, Tom, or do you know?
Pavel is a channel partner for Waygate. So I can answer this question on behalf of both of us. So what you've just heard us talk through is as a result of a technical partnership agreement that was formed between Waygate and Rhinestahl. So I was really happy, and hopefully this is reflected by you as well, Mark, from a Rhinestahl point of view, to have formed the agreement about 18 months ago, so relatively recently, so that we could work together and exploit the potential that we have by combining our systems. So that is a technical agreement that we have between our two businesses. The commercial agreement has remained as it always has been, in as much that hasn't changed, Pavel. So we, from a Waygate perspective, we do not sell and we do not service or maintain or sell any Rhinestahl products such as the Future Drive system. So that's not changed.
Yeah, it's always possible for there to be commercial agreements in the future, but that's the current status. Yes.
Right, Sachin, thank you. How do we access the history of images to see if there are any propagation? Okay, great question. So this is all part of, yes, being able to save images, send potentially those images to Inspection Works and be able to track the degradation of defects over the course of time as you continue to inspect that engine throughout its life cycle. So that's something that we recognize as a requirement. You've perhaps familiar with our connection with Inspection Works from the BORESCOPE. So all of the data that is saved on the BORESCOPE can be immediately sent to the cloud into Inspection Works using our push to IW feature. So that as you're saving, it's sending also. So it sends and saves the data on your local drive, but also copies that information to the cloud up to Inspection Works. So to answer your question, that will be in the subsequent webinar associated with Inspection Works. But if you weren't using Inspection Works, then I guess the answer to your question is more of a traditional answer, in as much that you would be able to search for the data using your local Windows platform and be able to compare data over periodic inspections over the course of time. I think I've answered that question now. Right, have we got any more? Any more questions, people? Then love answering questions. We'll just leave it another 10 or so seconds. If there's nothing else, then thank you for connecting. Those of you that want to watch it back, it's available on our YouTube channel. All the information's there, and please do reach out to either me or Mark through LinkedIn. You can sort of message us through using that portal if you choose to do so. Okay, no more questions. Thank you.